There's record. Okay, cool. Name's Robert Wagner. I've got about 20 years of experience in IT and InfoSec. My first job in InfoSec was a third shift SOC analyst. We did 12-hour shifts and we ran a 24/7 SOC with just 4 people and 1 floater. I moved my way up through security, engineer, and architect. I do work for Splunk now, but this deck isn't going to be about Splunk. It's going to be about cool stuff that I've learned. So I'm a co-founder of Hack for Kids. We are a charity that teaches kids about internet safety, security, and ethics. We run a big show in event in Chicago every year, much like this conference, but for kids. And we can also help other conferences run their own kids track. So if that interests you and you're involved with other cons, let us know. I know CornCon runs probably the most brilliantly titled kids track. It's called Children of the Corn when they are in person. It's a lot harder to do virtual events for kids though. We've done some for Hack for Kids and they've turned out pretty well, but it's a lot more difficult, especially to keep their attention. I'm a co-organizer of BurbSecCon in Chicago, just a social meetup group and a con that we usually do on the flip side of ThoughtCon every year. My opinions in this deck are my own or those of other researchers, so they don't necessarily reflect my company, but Splunk could be really silly if they disagreed with any of it, because it's great information that I'm hopefully going to bring to you. So just a little personal bit of information I always like to share. So my biggest claim to fame really has been the dog that I taught to ride motorcycle with me. That's Rocket. He's an amazing dog. So on to the presentation though. So this whole presentation is kind of a living deck based on problems that I experienced when I was on the practitioner side and that I see at many, many organizations that I visit now. So organizations get way too fixated on technologies to fix their problems, right? They get shiny object syndrome and they think tech is going to solve everything. Unfortunately, there's never enough security budget to buy everything we want, right? It's hard to buy more headcount. It's hard to buy more tools to help us solve our problems. And I had the same problem as well. So I started looking for free, easy, cheap ways to fill gaps. And as I started learning from other practitioners, I'd start writing these things down. Every time someone said, oh, well, they would have stopped this attack if they had just done this, or here's a great way to mitigate that, I'd write that down. And the hard thing is that, especially when you're just getting into InfoSec, many of these great presentations, they happen once, and then you may never see them again, especially if they weren't recorded. So, so this is my kind of way of sharing the things that I've learned throughout my career. And over again, the biggest thing I learned was the best place to start to improving the security team is to start with your most important security tool. It's the one everybody has. And what's the most important security tool every organization has? Yeah, it's you guys, right? Now, I'm not trying to call you guys tools. That's not my intent. But really, our people are so very important. We have to level them up as our primary objective. Because what happens if we don't, right? Who here hates this Venn diagram? I hate this Venn diagram. And I hate it because, A, it's way overused. But 2, it never, ever looks like this, right? We never see a good balance between people, process, and technology, and where we invest both our dollars and our time to improve these things. And that's bad. That's bad. If we forget about our people especially, but our process as well, it doesn't look like this, right? What does this look like if all we care about is technology? It looks like this. And nobody wants to describe their InfoSec program as this, right? This is bad. So how can we change this? How can we make the Venn diagram look like it's supposed to, right? Well, and without spending a ton of money, because that's what this talk is all about. So let's start with the people, right? We got to make sure that there are intelligent signs of life. So I've learned so much, and I just want to give a shout out to so many people that I've learned from and stolen from. Many of the things you're going to see are things I learned from the likes of Mike Poore and Dave Kennedy and Danny Harrison and all these other wonderful people. And the great thing is, and I don't think I have to tell anybody on this talk, at this conference, that there are free videos online from most of the cons now, but maybe your managers don't know, right? And the thing is commercial training is so expensive, right? If you go to Black Hat or something like that for training, you're dropping $2,000, $3,000, $6,000. And mind you, much of that training is great. SANS is great, but our team was always faced with, well, we don't have enough budget for everybody to go this year. So 3 of you get to go this year, and 3 of you get to go next year, and whatever. And many of the managers didn't know that they can still send their teams to actual HackerCons, right? Besides CornCon, all these HackerCons, even when they're in real life, are either cheap or very free. So if you're a manager out there, if you are not encouraging your people to go to these free or very cheap conferences, you are pissing your money away, because in fact, these cons are so good that I'm seeing CISOs and upper level managers showing up at these cons because the information at conferences like CornCon and others are so good, right? So send your people to go, honest to God, for the price of one major class. You can send your whole team to these, and it's a great way it helps with burnout. Our people love to learn in this community, and sending them things like this, which cost you almost nothing, are a great way for them to learn. Chicago has BurbSec, and its meetups are really cool. I recommend anybody in any city to stand up one. It was part of the whole, we called it CitySec back in the mid 2000s. CitySec was a movement of, hey, you know, we have awesome meetups like ISACA and ISSA. Your mileage may vary depending on your town, but they're all very formal, right? There's a meeting, there's a presenter, and they talk, and then you pay dues and all that stuff. How about just a meetup for InfoSec people that's very informal? Drink a few beers, share some war stories. And this has turned out to be really powerful, right? There's 5 in Chicago every month. And it's because Chicago has such huge sprawl that the people that live up north can't really get into the city, and not very easily. So there's one up north and there's one out west, and so on. There's one in the city itself. But I tell you, it's easy to set these up, and for the price of one beer, right? I can learn so much. I sit with my red team's friends all the time and talk about how they're getting in, you know, and my God, first off, they're bored out of their freaking minds. If you talk to most red teamers, it is so easy for them to get in. They get in the same way every time. And honest to God, if that's how they're getting in, then that's how real attackers are getting in too. So sit and learn from the red team if you're not on the red team. Sit and learn from the blue team if you're not on the blue team. To set these things up, easy. Pick the same day out of every month, the first Thursday of every month, whatever. Find a place that's willing to accommodate. A bar is always a good choice, or a place that serves alcohol, because we all like to have a beer after work, or many of us do, not everyone. But even those that don't, you sit and have a beverage of your choice and sit there for an hour or two and just learn. Make sure that the place is cool with separate checks. It's so critical. And then your job as an organizer, and have 2 or 3 people from 2 or 3 orgs, so that if there's a dumpster fire at one org, 2 other people can make it. And it's really easy to be the organizer. You just remind the bar that you're coming. And when new people show up, say hi. Just say, hi, new person. This is the meetup group. Come over here. Tell everybody who you are. Make them feel welcome, and you will have a very successful meetup. In addition, there are other researchers out there that just so freely share information besides those I've listed. If you don't follow InfoSec Taylor Swift, follow InfoSec Taylor Swift. Decent Security is a fantastic blog. Hacks for Pancakes has a fantastic blog. Both of these folks teaching and sharing freely to the community. I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate these people. But how about, and so that's how do we level up our own people, right? Without spending a lot of money. How can we level up the users themselves? The security awareness videos, yeah, how are those working? Yeah, not so good, right? I'd rather rub glass in my eyes myself than watch most of those videos. They are so bad. We have to do them, right? It's a compliance thing. We have to show them the videos, but how about doing something that makes them take a little bit more notice, participate, be active in that awareness. So I got this idea from Ben 10. He did a fantastic presentation out at DerbyCon, like 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. Just Google Ben 10 and DerbyCon. The videos are out on YouTube. It's freaking hilarious. I'm just going to nutshell the idea for you really quickly. And the idea is to create security contests as part of your awareness. So all he did was announce to his organization that they were starting this security awareness contest, that they would be seeing unusual security related things, maybe even those things those videos talked about, right? And that people who reported these strange things, the first person to report any individual strange thing would get, I don't know, maybe a $5 gift certificate to Dunkin' Donuts. At the end of the week, whoever had the most points would win a $200 gift certificate, something like that. And oh my God, the impact this had on his organization. People were like, you're going down. I'm totally scoring more points than you. People immediately started doing things like reporting the CFO walking through the organization without their badge on, because that was against security policy, right? Somebody else reported like a strange black box outside the side door. Turns out it was just a rodent control device, but still, people were paying attention. And the best one, 15 minutes after he announces the contest, he gets a call, and there's this very excited woman on the other end of the line. And she's like, hey, I found one of your things. And he goes, what things? And she's like, the security things that you said that we're going to see stuff. And he got very concerned and said, we haven't started yet officially. What exactly are you seeing? And she's like, oh, well, this thing appears on my screen that says, click here to authorize access. I can't remember the whole message. And as soon as he pulled his hand out of his facepalm, he said, how long have you been seeing these? She said, oh, like 6 weeks now. Yeah, they had a real incident 15 minutes into the competition. He turned his people into carbon-based intrusion detection sensors, and I love it. It worked great. Ben shares his code for his scoring server, by the way, so you can go out to Ben's GitHub and find the scoring server itself. So generous. Thanks, Ben, for that one. I will give you one caveat. I did have someone come up to me after talking about this once and say, yeah, we tried that at our organization, and it worked great when we started. However, we started getting, let's say, some very overzealous people. By the way, I see that things are popping up in the Q&A. I can't see all of the windows at once. If you do have a question, you can pop it into the chat, which I do have open here. The chat, not in the Discord, but here in the Zoom, because it's the only one I can see now when I'm in presentation mode. They said that people started doing things like downloading Nessus to scan for vulnerabilities, because that's a security issue. So the bigger problem is why were they allowed to download these things, right? But I love the fact that they were that enthusiastic, but we do have to watch out for the overzealous. So that's the one caveat I will give you. Let's see, so other great, so process, right? So that's some great ways to improve our people. How about process? We don't want our security org to be security theater, right? We want real processes in place. So, a lot of stuff moving to the cloud right now. A lot of people concerned about how can I do things to secure the cloud. And you know what? If you take a look at the egregious 11 and you start looking at what is actually on here, so much of this is not about vulnerable stuff, but just stuff like number 2 here, misconfiguration and inadequate change control. One of the biggest reasons that there are security issues within the cloud. So, great idea that I picked up from a researcher is bringing chaos engineering to security. Now, chaos engineering is usually used in IT ops side of things, right? Especially with microservices and stuff like that. Netflix actually is a huge proponent of this. If you haven't heard before, the concept's simple. You go around and randomly break shit and see what happens. Netflix actually blogs about this. I think they even have a book, great resource. But somebody else proposed, well, what if we could bring that to chaos engineering? To security. What if we could do security chaos? Sorry about the dog in the background there. Security chaos engineering. So the idea here is to inject failure of security controls and see what happens then. Hold on just a second. Oh my God. So I just had a FedEx delivery right in the middle of my talk. I'm sorry I had to do that. They would have kept knocking, I think. Sorry about having to answer that and the dog backing in the background. The timing could not be worse. So I just did a 4-hour class and had no interruptions. So anyway, this idea was put forth by the IEEE in a publication called CloudStrike. And they really went into depth here. They really tried to give a whole framework about how you would do this. Kennedy Tortora was the one that spearheaded a lot of the research along with other folks on the team. He presented on it at B-Sides Berlin. I don't think there's a recording out there, but there is his slides out there. And hold on just a second. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Oh my God, too funny. So, but this is basic idea, right? So trying to inject fault to see if cloud buckets were secure, see if you create a bad policy, and then see if you can inject fault into that and leverage that bad configuration. Yeah, thanks, Chris. So he put out like a whole way to categorize the fault injection, a whole matrix of the things that you could do and how you would start using chaos engineering for figuring out security issues in the cloud, which is a fantastic idea. So other things we can do. So passwords. Why are passwords still the bane of most practitioners' existence right now? Right. So often, we not only does one not use the same password for banking and Twitter, but and I certainly was guilty of this early on too when I was just in IT. If I had, a really secure server, I had to create a really long, I'd generate like an 18-character random password and then spend weeks memorizing that. And then all of a sudden you need a secure password for something else, right? Oh, wow, you've got this 18-character password for this and maybe that something else is your banking account or Home Depot or something like that, right? So passwords is just, the real answer here is two-factor or multi-factor. And even that isn't perfect, but it does solve a lot of sins. Unfortunately, two-factor is not free. There is one open source tool out there called Authy. I've heard of Authy being used at least in small deployments. I don't know anyone yet, and if you have, tell me, but I don't know anyone that's actually deployed it at scale, like in a large organization. So you can give it a try, but it doesn't solve ultimately what this problem is, right? Hopefully everybody here on the talk has seen this cartoon. Why did it take a cartoon to explain to us that this right here, this leet speak way of generating a password sucks? I mean, this is absolute crap, right? So this cartoon at this point is like 9 or 10 years old at this point. 8 or 9 years old, whatever. It took 3 days of guessing to guess this password. And that's just straightforward guessing, right? That's not even trying to crack a hash, which would be faster, but this is just actually trying to use some automated way to guess passwords. And teaching users how to create a good passphrase would be so much more valuable, right? For those of you that haven't seen this before, the entropy in just a simple phrase like this would be so much harder to guess. 550 years, 8 or 9 years ago, probably faster now, right? And so teaching our users just how to, I tell users all the time, hey, you know what? Think of your favorite song, go 3 lines in, go 3 words over, take the next 3 to 5 words, depending on how long they are, keep the spaces because they're actually considered special characters. If your whatever is accepting the password accepts spaces, and you've got a pretty darn good password, throw a number or 1 special character anywhere in here, and oh my freaking God, you now have a really solid password. Unfortunately, I've noticed that a lot of online services, if you try to generate a passphrase like that, you go, oh no, that's too simple, and you're like, the hell it is, but there's nothing you can do about it. In addition, KeyPass is free. Now, I've gotten in debates with my red team friends who were like, yeah, but dude, if you have a password vault on your system and I spearfish in, then I can, thanks. Yeah, no, KeyPass is awesome, right? If they can get in, well, then they have all the users' passwords. And I'm like, yeah, but if you don't have a password vault and you're using 1 password and I sneak in with the smokers and that 1 long ass password is on a sticky under the keyboard, same fail, right? So most researchers I know say password vault's better than nothing, and get that good two-factor in, right? Not just cell phone, text, SMS messages, but actual passwords with an app that gives tokens will solve a lot of that. So people in process, great. What about technology? What can we do about the technology itself? So how many folks in here have in their organization, somewhere in their organization, Java 6 still running? Yeah. Hopefully you're all raising your hands. If you are in an organization of any significant size and you didn't raise your hand, either you're lying to me, which would be silly because I can't see you, or you don't know. And I will guarantee you Java 6 is lurking somewhere. And the reason is always the same everywhere I go. It's because there is some mission critical service running somewhere, it's back office usually, that needs Java 6. The developer died 10 years ago. Nobody knows how to fix the code. So there it sits. And because there it sits, we've got our users running old Java clients. And I think everybody on the call meeting knows how bad that is, right? You go surf the web with bad old Java and you are owned. Now, one thing a lot of people don't know is that every Java client comes with its own unique user agent string. And if we just simply filter that user agent string at the gateway, that will prevent this god-awful version of, 20-year-old version of Java from going out to the internet, which is what the problem is, right? It going out to the internet. So you can filter for that. Hopefully, eventually you can get rid of Java or at least get it freaking updated. So you don't need Java doing anything but talking to those internal systems. Now, laptops are a problem, right? Laptops go outside of the network. They don't go through the gateway usually when they're outside of the network, unless you're backhauling everybody through the VPN, all of the traffic through the VPN. And I don't see people doing that anymore. It would be a nightmare. It would be a mitigating factor if that's all you had. A better option, probably GPOs that say when this system is not on the corporate network, Java doesn't run. That should be a pretty good mitigating factor. The better one is get somebody to hire a dev and fix that. Java, for God's sake, it's not that hard. People just don't want to spend the money on it, right? Moving on. Yeah, there we go. So this is a list of every executable extension as of 2017, and I haven't seen any updates to it, so Windows World hasn't changed much, that you need to block at the email gateway. And I'm serious, I mean all of them, and tomorrow, if you can, by the end of next week, preferably. I know what you're gonna say, but Robert, I've got some users that just might need gadget or something here, right? To which I say, if Apple can tell us that we can do without a headset jack and we're just going to deal with it, we can do the same thing with our users. Now, the key to this is have a very robust, quick to act exception policy in place. If you put this in place, you're probably going to find a couple of groups that do need some extension that you weren't anticipating. put extra controls around that group, and then let them have their freaking extensions. But that's it. Limit as much as possible. I mean, it's not a perfect solution, but it is free, it is cheap, and you can do it tomorrow, and it will stop a lot of low-hanging fruit. So worth the effort. Antivirus, yeah. We don't get a ton out of our antivirus anymore, right? But it's not completely useless. So one awesome thing, every major AV vendor out there allows their tool to be to accept lists of indicators of compromise, and you can use that to then go looking for IOCs. Now, you could also do that with, say, your vuln scanner, if your vuln scanner was authenticating to all of your systems. But AV is everywhere already by policy, right? It should be on every system out there. So why not leverage what you've already got? If you are doing authenticated vuln scans, by the way, awesome, let me shake your hand, because that's the right way to be doing it, but it's not possible everywhere and not possible all the time. So use your AV for something helpful. In addition, heuristics. It's not great, but it does find some malicious code, right? Heuristics was the first attempt to find malicious code without signatures, right? To do it based on the behavior. So I suspect that in a lot of organizations it's turned off because it can get noisy and it needs some tweaking and some fine tuning to prevent it from being that noisy. But it can be your friend. It can help out a little bit. And last but not least, is anybody actually checking the AV alerts themselves? So many of my pen test and red team friends are like, you know what? I was as noisy as a girl in a china shop. I knocked over stuff left and right. I know I was tripping off alerts, but nobody was checking. I had domain admin way before anybody actually responded to any of those alerts. So simply just putting in good process to deal with those alerts and get them to bubble up in your alerting system, that'd be helpful. So I love this next section so much. This is all about deception practices, honey tokens, landmines, tripwires, whatever you want to call it. The concept is we're tricking the attacker into doing something that lets us know that they're there, right? In very simple, easy ways, cheap ways to do that. Even if they do realize that we've tricked them, it's too late. The simplest of this, and I've seen this work so well, is the concept of a honey file. So you get together with your IT admins, you create a hidden file in the golden image. It's something that you're going to hide from the users. No one should see it. Make sure you'll whitelist it, allow list it off of the AV and the vuln scans, anything else. So just a simple text file. Call it something that an attacker could not resist opening, like passwords or password list or something like that. So this is a great way to be able to kind of put sensors out through your entire user land. Who are the primary targets, right? Web apps users, those are the targets right now. And yet usually we've got nothing on the endpoint telling us if bad things are happening other than AV, and we know how good that is. So you log one tiny little thing. You log anything where that file's accessed at the endpoint. It's one tiny little bit of text. This file was accessed. And if you get alerts on that, you've either got something weird happening, something evil happening, or the occasional, and I don't see this very often anymore, but if a user did drop down to the command line and do a dir/s, it would probably trip this as well. But for the most part, you're going to get some pretty good fidelity off of this, and it costs you next to nothing. Same vein, bit better fidelity, a honey account. So you put accounts out there. You call in the domain. You call them domain admin something. Follow your standard naming convention. And then you put the password, you put something in the description of the account that says the password is this. It doesn't even have to really be that. But you probably want to actually make it a legit password for that account, but it's going to have login hours of 0. Put it in the admins group. Anybody that is actually enumerating your Active Directory configuration then is going to see that, and they're going to think you're the dumbest MCSE that ever existed. They're going to rub their hands and go, I have you now, because they think they've got the keys to the kingdom, but they've got nothing. This account isn't going to work. You're going to get an alert on one domain Windows event, and that is somebody trying to use this account. Make sure hardly anybody knows about it. Bury it. Don't let a whole lot of people know. Make sure that that password is only in the hands of a few people. This is solid. Some additional landmines. So anybody out there a DBA? If you are, and stick your fingers in your ears right now so I can talk to everybody else. They are the biggest prima donnas, right? We cannot put so much pushback about putting any sort of monitoring on the databases. So get around that. Quick little trick: get together with 1 or 2 DBAs, not everybody, and create a honey database or even a honey table. Do not publish a schema. Make sure nobody else knows it's out there. Bury it somewhere and call it something juicy again. Call it credit cards. Call it, you make a couple of them, right? And make them something that your organization would actually have, something someone would want to steal. And again, you don't have to alert on everything. You don't have to log everything for these databases or tables. You just log on access to your honey tables. Oh my God, if you get anybody, you've either got evil again happening, or you have a DBA that needs to go back to remedial DBA school because they just did select star from everything in the fucking, in the freaking organization. Sorry about that. And then the last but not least, this is great. So this is invoke run as. Invoke run as you can get from GitHub. You can deploy it with SCCM or WSS, whatever you're using for Windows deployments out there. And all it does is create a fake admin account with fake creds and loads it into memory on every system that it's running on. And all you do is alert when you see that account in use in the organization. This is brilliant because this is how you catch things like Mimikatz, scraping creds out of memory, right? If you should not get false positives off of this. If you've got users that know how to download, get around your controls, download Mimikatz and run it, you've got a big insider problem. So great way to catch more advanced attackers leveraging those kind of tactics. And again, I've added a little bit of CUD spin to this talk because I've gotten so many people saying, well, what about for the cloud? So are there honey tokens for the cloud? Yes, but there's some caveats. So very cool talk in 2018, Project Space Grab. These guys created a way to create and annotate and alert on AWS keys that are fake at scale. So they were able to create lots and lots and lots of them. They don't provide access to anything, but they just spread these AWS keys all over the organization and maybe externally as well, which doesn't work too well because Amazon's gotten really good at telling people that, hey, you've got keys out there that shouldn't be out there. So they'll block them typically. Could still use them internally though. But shortly after that talk, Rhino Labs found a way to detect booby-trapped mass-produced tokens. Now, they didn't say anything about the handcrafted ones. So I think your handcrafted ones could still, thanks, Chris. So they found a way around, partly because, and I didn't know this, CloudTrail doesn't log a handful of niche services. Awesome. No logging at all for a few niche services. You can read the research to get those. And partly because Amazon's own error messages, can actually reveal that a key is booby-trapped. So if you try to use that key in the right way and you take a look at the error messages, you'll know it's booby-trapped without firing off the booby trap. So be careful about that, but I think the handcrafted ones will work well. So another way to stop attack, a couple more ways to stop attackers in their tracks. Using a web form to authenticate to the proxy just once a day. You know, first time the user logs in, tries to go to the web, authenticate to the proxy. It stops a lot of scripted and automated attacks. It can even stop, you know, if the attacker doesn't have legit creds yet, it can stop them there. And especially if you make the users use something different than their domain, maybe, I know you're gonna be cranky about that, but depends on your risk model. If you're in a pretty, an environment where you've got to be more secure than normal, maybe .gov, maybe .research, I don't know. You might want to go to this length. You might even go to the length if it's really it needs to be secure. Asking the users to allow a site once a day or once a week. Literally, when they go to Google, they're going to get a pop-up that says, do you allow access to this website? And it might teach them bad behaviors, I'm not sure. But the act of them saying yes is something that an automated script isn't going to know what to do with. So that's why you do something like that. Your mileage may vary on that one. WPAT has a man-in-the-middle vulnerability. These two null routes mitigate that vulnerability. In addition, I want you to disable NetBIOS. I know it's just like the extensions. You can't do it tomorrow. You're probably not going to get it done this year, but it needs to be on your plan. Whether it's your 1-year plan, your 3-year, 5-year plan, I don't care. Get rid of it. It allows so much evil to happen. Hopefully most of you have heard of Responder. It, by the way, is another free tool that you should download and test on your own environment, get permission. But Responder does things like listen for NetBIOS broadcasts. And as soon as it hears one, it goes, hey, yeah, that's me. I'm that server you're looking for, Windows host. Why don't you give me your session ID? Why don't you give me your hash and I'll take care of things for you? Yeah, not really good. So getting rid of NetBIOS, it's gonna be difficult. You're gonna have to have a real plan for it. Make that plan, start it now, do it as soon as you can. Disabling DNS servers for external namespace, the internal DNS servers. This is a really good one. So we don't want to make it easy for attackers to get to their tools, to get to their command and control. So don't let internal name servers do forward lookups for external namespace. That's the proxy's job. And oh, by the way, hopefully they're authenticating to that proxy. Makes it a lot harder, especially for automated things to get out because they're not going to know what to do. More roadblocks. So who here has heard of LAPS? I mean, this is something in the security realm that Microsoft did well. I know that's a weird sentence to say, right? But they did it very, very well. It's not perfect. There are some ways to evade it. But for the most part, if you have local admin in your organization, first of all, if you have local admin in your organization, right? Sometimes there's nothing you can do about that. At least for right now, get rid of it just like NetBIOS eventually. But for the most part, if you have local admin, it's the same local admin on every system. It makes it so easy for the attacker to laterally move. LAPS takes all those local admin accounts and randomizes the password for them and still allows IT to do their job. IT can still use LAPS to actually get local admin access. Works well everywhere. I've heard people deploying it. Like I said, there are some evasions for it, but this is solid stuff. And if Microsoft tries to charge you for it, just say no. Just say, dude, you got to give us that for free with our license, right? You'll get it for free, I guarantee. And last but not least, I learned this one from Dave Kennedy. He's such a fantastic researcher. This is nothing more than a GPO that says, deny access to this system, to the workstations and laptops essentially from the network. Because no one should ever have to connect to a workstation or laptop from the network, short of IT ops. And oh, freaking by the way, IT ops can control this GPO. So they can flip it when they need to. Apply that to the local admin group. And this makes even Dave's job really difficult. He said when this is in place, short of there being vulnerabilities that would allow him to laterally move, he's not getting around by usual means. He's literally got to spearfish each and every user in the org in order to laterally move, and that's a living hell. So good stuff. Oh, but what about the logs, Robert? You said you work for Splunk. You got some log foo we can use? Absolutely. So pass the hash. It's not really big right now, right? It's on the decline. An attacker will still use it if they can, if they need to, if it's the path of least resistance, right? Hackers are lazy, so they're gonna use path of least resistance. Here's a pretty good fidelity search for detecting pass the hash detection, and this could actually be leveraged against your historical logs. So take this and run it against your, I don't know, by policy, you're probably required to keep 1, 3, 7 years of logs. Run this against the old logs. See if anybody was passing the hash in the past. DNS, like I said, just such a rich environment to go looking for evil. Looking for unauthorized DNS, what you're looking at is and by the way, don't try to scribble it down. I can get you the deck afterwards. I'll have my contact information. You can hit me up. These are the same search, just different sources, different indexes to look for unauthorized DNS. Even better, looking for DNS spoofing activity. Very interesting, the second one, clients connecting to multiple DNS servers, right? So by default, any host will know about, especially our workstations and laptops, they'll know about how many DNS servers? Yeah, 2, right? Whether you manually put those in or put in DHCP, round robining will change that a little bit, but you can tweak the allow list a bit so that it doesn't get confused. But finding a host connecting to multiple DNS servers, especially externally, yeah, this would be really, really weird. This is not normal host behavior. Even better, extremely long DNS queries, which is probably going to be indicative of, yeah, data exfil, right? DNS is usually, in many orgs, not logged at all. It's wide open, and it is a great place to exfil data. Check out DNSCat if you haven't. Also, I was talking about domain stuff earlier. If you don't know about Bloodhound, find out about Bloodhound and also use it on your, get permission, use it on your org. Bloodhound calculates the degrees of separation between the account you're using now and domain admin. And if the degrees of separation between you and domain admin is a small number, you need to get your Windows admins to change your Active Directory structure. It is too flat, it's bad. So Bloodhound, another great free tool. All these tools are free. Including the tools here. So you can download the free version of Splunk plus the URL toolbox. You can get packet capture using Bro, Zeek, or even Splunk's tool Stream. But you're looking for really long DNS queries. Now, 2 standard deviations or 200 characters long, that's not those aren't magic numbers. They're not perfect. You might have to tweak them a little bit. Maybe it's 2.16 standard deviations, but you'll find the sweet spot, I guarantee you. 200 characters long, again, a great place to start. Based on your own environment, though, you might have to make it 290. I don't know. But you will find a sweet spot for this to get mostly good alerts. Entropy is another way to measure DNS queries, literally by measuring the entropy in the string itself. So, for example, entropy is most commonly used. It's part of that free URI toolbox that I told you about. But for example, the string google.com has pretty low entropy, 2.6. But this relatively random string here has a really high, and I know 4.28 doesn't sound really high compared to 2.6, but in entropy math, it really is a very high number. And not something someone would type in, right? So just measuring the entropy of those queries is great. By the way, if you're going to start taking a look at DNS data, and I taught this in my class as well, in many organizations, it's Windows that's doing your DNS. And by default, Windows will only, if you're logging DNS from DNS servers within the Windows environment, they are only going to record the query, but not the answer. And you need both really to get a full picture of whether or not things are evil. So, and the only way you can get that from the logs is to put the Windows DNS servers in debug mode. Nobody wants to do that. It's just ugly. So faster, easier, down and dirty way, throw a tap right in front of the name servers and just pump that out. You can even filter it out to just the records that you want, right? Maybe just the A records and the responses, stuff like that. But much easier way to get DNS data. So if you were to apply entropy then to those packets that you've been doing, you can use URL query to parse out the query. Make sure that you allow list, so you're gonna filter out your CDNs. So maybe, you filter out based on the Alexa 5,000, 20,000, whatever is right for your org. But what you will get is something that looks like this. So you can see all these fairly random strings here, these long, ugly things that nobody would ever type in by hand, they all have a pretty high entropy, all over 4.4. So good results from there. It's not perfect. You will get some false positives. You'll need to tweak that, but you will be on the road to getting some great results there. So AI, right? AI and machine learning. Everybody wants to sell you some of that stuff. There's lots of free things you can do with algorithms. So let's take a look. So there's 3 good tools out there if you want to go down this route. R is really good if you want to start doing some algorithms. SciPy and Splunk has a free tool. You download get the Splunk developer's license. If you need that'll last you 6 months. You can get the free version, but it's smaller. That's permanent, but like I said, it's smaller. Depends on your need. But get a free version of Splunk. Just Google free Splunk. If that doesn't work, Google developer's license. There's the link for you for the dev license. And then a free app that we have called Machine Learning Toolkit. But any one of these tools can do what I'm going to show you next, which is the cool part. So we're always on the hunt for some data that we can play with. CMS.gov, believe it or not, is a great resource. So if you come here to research, stats, and data, you can download, because CMS, Medicare and Medicaid is government-funded healthcare, they have to keep records on it, and much of those records are available for download and analysis. Now, what you're going to get in that data, obviously this is HIPAA data, you're not going to get the person that the prescription was for, but just about everything else. You're going to get what the prescription was for, who wrote it, when they wrote it, all sorts of fantastic data. So we thought, well, what can we do, like just as an experiment with that data? Well, what we did is we pared it down to just the opioid prescriptions, figuring that could be a pretty interesting place to go doing some random analysis, right? So what you see there is the result of that. What we did is we took 2015 and just the opioid data, opioid prescription data, and then we ran it through 2 very simple algorithms, and I can show you guys how to use these in like a day. But the first algorithm was called PCA, and PCA, its job, and you can see the results of PCA over here, is to take a very large data set like this, all these features, that's what data science is called, these fields, features, and it reduces down lots of features to X number of features. We chose 3 because you can map 3 on a 3D plot, right? Which is partly how we got to this, this 3D graph that you see. The results of that were then immediately piped into just one other algorithm. It's called K-means. K-means is a very simple clustering algorithm. And that's what created the clusters here. So great, we've got these clusters, and now it's just Sesame Street math. Which of these things are not like the other? And we see most of the prescriptions all fall around these centroids that are in the middle of the green here. And we've got some outliers, a little bit outliers this way, and then a long tail of outliers that go this way. Now, we don't know why they're outliers at this point. We had to start doing some research. So we started Googling the providers. And if you Google John Couch right now, you will see that John's in jail for 240 months for prescription fraud. He was writing prescriptions, lots of them, and that's why he's an outlier. He was writing way more than his peers for the time window. And stood out like a sore thumb. There's another doctor here, it's further down, who's in jail as well. And it was also prescription fraud, but the reason they ended up as an outlier, they were a pediatrician. And I don't know too many 2-year-olds that need Oxycontin on a regular basis. Although every time I fly, it seems like there's one that, no, I'm kidding. And he wasn't giving Oxycontin to the kids, by the way. He was writing them for their parents to abuse, obviously. So, but this is just a simple analysis of data that we thought would be interesting. Could we do this with network traffic? Yeah. Could we do this with protocols, executables, anything that you can measure in the organization for anomalies? Yeah. And this is a down and dirty way to do it. They always ask me to put in just like a 2-second commercial for Splunk. So what's Splunk? Splunk is a freaking eye of Sauron with math. And that's all you really need to know. It gives you visibility, but you don't need to buy Splunk to do the things that I taught you here. It's just a plug for us. Hopefully, though, I've given you some great information. And you get to use it because really, you guys are the most important thing. Only you can prevent InfoSec dumpster fires. And that's the end of the talk. Like I said, so a lot of people say, Robert, that was great. And I believe everything you said there. I've been doing that research myself, but my company won't believe me. Will you come and present this for my company? Yes, absolutely, I will. I'll have to do it virtually for now, but I will totally do this. If you're just having a hard time getting traction with folks that need to understand that there's so much that can be done without buying new tools, who need to understand we need to focus on our people and our process. I also teach a kick-ass workshop. I just did it the past 4 hours. It's all about running security investigations using logs. It is a free class, and I will teach it for any group of more than 6 people, right? So you can get 8 people together, whether it's your own org or your own security group in your own time. I will teach you guys that class for free. You can get a hold of me any one of these ways. And also do me one last favor. If you liked the talk, go to my LinkedIn and just throw me a comment. I'm trying to prove within my organization that these things like this are so incredibly valuable to the InfoSec community, because Splunk didn't grow up as an InfoSec company, right? We were IT logs when we started. So help me prove out my point a little bit here. Drop me a comment on my LinkedIn if you can. No pressure, but it would help me out greatly just to put together some metrics. Yeah, look at all these people that love this. And I'm going to open up to questions. If you have any questions, I can see the Zoom chat right now. Actually, I could probably also, well, no, I want to leave the contact information up. But any questions, and or does anybody have a great free idea that they've come up with that they'd like to share with this group too? I'd love to hear from you. Although if you have a great idea, it probably is more than 20 characters of text. So it may be difficult. If you've got a link to a great idea, post it here in the chat as well. But I'll leave it open for questions here for a minute. I'll see if I can switch over to Discord too and bring that up in my view so I can see if there's any questions in the Discord. I see there's certainly some people have been having fun with oh, that was in track 2. All right. So I don't see any questions, but I definitely thank you guys for your time. I hope all of you get to take at least one cool idea home. I've never done this presentation without someone saying, "Oh my God, that's a great idea." I'm going to try as soon as I get back to work. So hopefully I've given you at least one nugget. And with that, if I don't see any other questions pop up, I'm gonna shut down the Zoom, or at least stop the recording. And probably
All
stop.
right. Hey, thank you, Robert. Thanks for putting this on and for your tutorial and your presentation.
Oh, you bet. Is that John?
Yeah.